Good afternoon. My name is John Young, and I am the Vice Chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I would like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rules of procedure adopted by the board on September 26, 2011, last amended on March 9th, 2020. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review in the back of the room and online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorneys, should please stand now and take an oath administered by the board's attorney. So go ahead and stand if you're planning to speak.
Raise your right hand. You should answer out loud. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio rules of evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law. Any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, which may include contacting their employer, an attempt to exert influence is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, before you begin your comments, please state your name and address for the record. With that, let's proceed with the first item.
The first item today is 108 to 110 East McMicken Avenue. My apologies for the error on the slideshow. It is McMicken Avenue, not street. What is before you is both a COA and zoning relief. The applicant is Nick Guagenti. The owner is Somerset Flats, LLC. The property is located at Walnut Street and East McMicken Avenue. You can see in the aerial here, there are two buildings that are consolidated on a single lot. There is a significantly deteriorated remains of a detached carriage house building at the rear of the lot along Hust Alley. The property is in the Over the Rhine Historic District as well as the Over the Rhine neighborhood. Here you can see the existing conditions from the McMicken side of the property. There are two 3-story brick buildings that were built circa 1880. And here's the view from Hust Alley. This property had previously, or the HCB had previously approved the demolition of this accessory structure carriage house in 2024. That was along with different rehabilitation plans and its replacement with the surface parking pad. A lot of similarities between the proposals, but ultimately it is different enough that it is a substantial change coming back before the board today with what the property owner proposes. When we look at what zoning relief is being requested, it is a special exception for the buffer yard requirement. You can see here, this is where two different zoning districts abut each other, the commercial and the residential. A buffer yard type A, which is 10 feet of buffering, and a 6-foot tall screen fence is required at the rear of the property along Hust Alley. So they're requesting relief to eliminate that buffer yard requirement. What's proposed is a detached garage at the location of the rear former carriage house and parking pad. It is proposed to be a 4-car structure. It's clad in hardy plank siding. It has a side gable roof and steel panel garage doors for each single entry of the 4-car garage. There's also a new privacy fence and wall. There's new windows, new storefronts proposed. There is an infill of some window openings and replacement of some windows with glass block. There's repair to some damaged brick walls, a portion of which will require rebuilding. We start with the zoning analysis on the special exception for the buffer yard. This is really to construct the garage as proposed, as no construction would be permitted within 10 feet of that rear property line. We've made a finding, we did a detailed analysis in the staff report that it is consistent with the standards for special exceptions in 1435054, also consistent with the general standards public interest. You can see in the context aerial in the corner of this, the application materials that really, there's multiple buildings that are built to the property line along Hust Alley. And the parking, the garage is at the back. It's not highly visible from the main streetscape elevation. And construction within the required buffer yard is not anticipated to have an adverse effect on the historic character or aesthetic integrity of the district as a whole. It's really compatible with the built form along Hust Alley. As we look at the certificate of appropriateness, again, there's extensive analysis in your staff report. Our overall finding is that the proposal substantially meets the Over the Rhine historic conservation guidelines, both for the overall rehabilitation of the building and the new construction of the detached garage. In the portions of walls that are being rebuilt, they're going to be reconstructed in CMU with steel reinforcement. They'll be clad with salvaged brick and also not highly visible from the street. The window replacement that's proposed is gelled wen aluminum clad double hung windows, which are appropriate and approved according to the design guidelines. The majority of the openings will remain the same. There is a non-original window opening on the side to be filled in with glass block. And there are some, I think, rear alterations where existing openings are being infilled, but not highly visible from the primary streetscape. You can see this is an example of a window that's being infilled. When we look at the existing historic materials that remain in the storefronts, it's really the limestone storefront that is proposed to remain. It's going to be cleaned, it's going to be repainted. As the urban conservator said in his staff report, they would encourage the applicant not to repaint the storefront lintel at 110 East McMicken, as that has some existing ghost signage that's still visible that sort of tells the history of this property. You can see this is the proposed storefront configuration. The replacement doors and the storefront windows meet the design guidelines. When we look at the new construction for the garage, it's generally compatible with the massing, height, scale, setbacks, composition, rhythm, roof, material section of the new construction guidelines. It's compatible with historic outbuildings found throughout the district. The materials and the garage doors proposed meet the conservation guidelines. We'll acknowledge the new construction guidelines prohibit vehicular entries on street-facing walls without a majority of buildings on the block face having vehicular entries. But staff finds the vehicular entry on this accessory garage is appropriate based on its alley facing elevation, not a principal street in the district. The doors are going to be placed near the lot line. It's designed to clearly be modern and secondary, and it is consistent with the previous placement of the carriage house along the alley on this site. So contextually for the specific site, we are recommending approval and find it to be appropriate. When we look at the site improvements, there is a 6-foot privacy fence and wall along the east property line that you can see here. It's a combination of a wood fence and a brick wall between the garage and the existing historic building, really to enclose a rear courtyard. This property, the applicant has stated, is often used as a pass-through for pedestrians based on the location. And they really want to secure the property a little better with the garage. There is a wall that already exists on the west side that you can see here. So the guidelines state that masonry privacy walls are not encouraged. But we feel that in this context, not encouraged does give the flexibility to permit a masonry privacy wall. It matches the historic privacy wall on the west elevation or the west side of the property. It will be brick, but clearly modern brick. It will be painted. So sort of that contemporary but compatible interpretation of the existing masonry wall on the site. So overall, there was a pre-hearing on January 14th. One neighboring property attended, a property owner attended, the applicant did not attend. And we have one letter of support from a neighboring property owner that was in your packets. And we are recommending approval of both the zoning relief, the special exception for the buffer yard. We have found it to be consistent with 1435-054, and in the interest of historic preservation, the overall elimination of the buffer yard for consistency with the streetscape in a dense urban historic neighborhood. We're recommending approval of the certificate of appropriateness with 3 conditions. The first is that the infill material of the window on the north elevation is recessed a minimum of a 1/2 inch, really just to preserve that memory of the window opening there. That the northwest wall of 108 East McMicken shall remain unpainted. And that the building permit be issued within 2 years or the COA shall expire. Overall, we make the finding that the project substantially conforms to the overlying historic conservation guidelines. Happy to answer any questions.
Applicant is here. Is there any information that you guys want to add?
Just come up for one quick sec so you guys can keep it moving right along. I'm Neil Marquardt, and I'm the owner, and I'm on 42 West McMicken. And was here a couple of years ago with Mike Wentz, owner of Wentz Design, and this is Nick here.
Yep, Nick, I'm under Mike.
And we were here talking about 50 East McMicken, which was one building, and this in a lot of ways has similarities with what we're trying to do here, which is the garage gets me really excited. Never been this excited about a garage. And then also, as you said, the wall, because it really does help with security, with safety, obviously. Kind of a rough part of the town right there. And the ability to pull down that alley and pull into your garage and have a nice kind of secure backyard is kind of the linchpin of this whole thing working out. So I appreciate that. Again, live right down the street. I'm not sure why I like doing this stuff, but I'm really excited about it. And we've got most of the same team in terms of the mechanicals and all that stuff that you guys probably don't care about. But we've got a playbook. And it's great to be able to just walk right down the street. It's great to be able to make a difference in the neighborhood and do stuff like this. And by all accounts, I think Nick and I misstepped or mixed up. Well, first of all, the date of we missed the pre-hearing. but beyond that, the building on the left, I think we said that we were going to paint that, but that's not the case. Whatever you guys recommend and the guidance and advice that you guys give as a group and as a team, happy to work with you guys. I think we've have a good working history over the 4 or 5 buildings that we've done together. And we hope to do another 4 or 5 in the future. So happy to answer any questions.
Well, does the board have any questions for staff or the applicants?
It can be for either of you. Can you just clarify how much the garage is set back from the alley? And
It is set back, so the start of that garage is 7'9" from the edge of that property line.
I assume you've made sure that as cars come down, they'll be able to turn into their spots.
Correct.
Overall, I really like the layout of the interiors of the units, and I like that those upper units are, I guess, like 2 or 3 bedroom, depending on how you count it. Some larger units, I think we hear a lot in OTR, they want some larger units that can support families or a group of young professionals living together. I like to see that.
Thanks. I'm glad you pointed that out. We talked a lot about that. And I think there's a lot of people just kind of doing the 1 bedroom kind of small turns. And Mike and Nick challenged me to think a little bit more about like, hey, what else could we do here to add a little bit of variety and some character? So it's been a fun challenge getting to this point. And also when it comes to the third bullet point, I think you said we need to have permits within 2 years of, I'm hoping we get them within 2 weeks or 2 months, whatever it is. The clock is ticking and the bank is, asking for its money for every month.
Any other questions from the board? So I think the 3 people who signed up for this item are the development team, you guys. Is there anyone that did not sign up for number 1 that wants to speak on this application? If so, I turn it over to you guys for deliberation or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness with the conditions laid out by staff. Second.
All right, call roll. Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Tate?
Aye.
Ms. Dobbins? Aye. And the chair votes aye as well. Congratulations.
Hey,
Thank you so much.
Great stuff, you guys. Group hug, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Moving on to item number 2.
Our next case is 13 1337 Spring Street. This is just a certificate of appropriateness before you today. The applicant is Robert Struntz. The owner is Allison M. Irwin. The property is in the Over the Rhine Historic District as well as the Pendleton neighborhood. You can see here's the location of the property. It is a through lot on the between Spring Street and Broadway, just north of East 13th Street. So you can see it's a double frontage lot. What's before you is really the Spring Street side, a carriage house. There is a 3-story Italianate residence that fronts Broadway. That's what's addressed as 1332 Broadway. And this 2-story carriage house on the rear of the lot fronting Spring Street. Here's the head-on view of the existing condition of the carriage house. It has a single car garage door opening with a modern replacement garage door, but generally it's historic opening configuration. Here you can see the site plan and the street configuration. There have been parking and traffic lane reconfigurations on this street recently. Prior to those parking and traffic lane configuration changes, you can see right now there is parking on the east side of the street. Prior to that, it was on the west side of the street. And the Department of Transportation and Engineering at the city shifted the location of parking, which has impacted and changed the turning radius to get into the garage. You can see the diagram here with the 2 different turning radius from the previous, where the traffic lane was where the cars are parked now, to the current, which is the tighter turning radius on the left in the diagram. So what they have proposed is to widen the garage door to allow for an easier, wider turning radius into the garage. This is the existing condition of the building. This is the proposed wider garage door configuration. All other elements will remain intact with the alteration. You can see the side-by-side comparison of the Spring Street elevation right here. That segmental arch will be retained, really leaving the memory of what that original opening was, while giving a more practical size garage door to allow the carriage house to continue to function for off-street parking. Your staff reports include the extensive analysis according to the conservation guidelines. When we look at the context, context specific for the work that's being requested, Spring Street is a narrow street. It has 20 feet of road width, a 13-foot drive lane. When you take out the parking width from that overall road width, the owners prior to the parking reconfiguration were able to access the garage despite the narrow width of the street because of the location of the parking and the drive lane. And they had adequate space to turn in and to back out of the garage easily and consistently. With the recent change, the turning radius has been significantly reduced. The Department of Transportation and Engineering has confirmed the new layout of the parking lane and the traffic lane is going to remain. They're not, it's not on the table to alter that from the city's perspective. And they are also not willing to put new parking signs or restrict parking to compact cars in this area to make the turning radius more easily. So this configuration is proposed to remain. The parking configuration is supported by the Community Council. And I know there's been a lot of discussion and interest. I think generally what we have received in the packet and in the letters is that the Community Council is supportive of the parking remaining as is. So it's a complicated, balancing of the different needs in the historic neighborhood. The City of Cincinnati's official position is that the garage is still functional, although it is difficult to maneuver into. Staff has reviewed, all the materials provided. There were an extensive number of videos that were provided. I don't know if board members were able to look at those. They are part of the record. I'm happy to show one now or not, as the board prefers.
Preference.
Probably a good idea to do one or two.
I saw some of them, but there were so many I didn't watch all of them, so I don't know if there's one that you think is the most helpful for illustrating.
I think this. I'll say, I don't think we have audio, but you know, what you hear is that there are two people directing them, you know, even to try and assist with this maneuvering.
No, there's sound.
Wishful thinking. I mean, and then imagine if it's dark out, it's just, there's no way. And our other vehicles are 2 feet longer, so. You got 2 feet. You're gonna keep going, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to look. Now you can turn.
So I think that gives you the general sense of the difficulty with assistance of in the daylight of maneuvering in and out of the garage. There are other videos that showed you know, the ease of maneuvering in and out when the parking was in a different configuration, even in a larger vehicle. So, you know, staff's finding is that, you know, while it may be physically possible to access the garage with great care and effort, maneuvering in or out of the space without damaging either the walls of the building or the vehicles themselves, you know, would be extremely difficult. requiring significantly more than just your standard 3-point turn or what would be expected to get in and out of a garage on a regular basis. The conservation guidelines do say that original opening shall not be altered, but without widening the existing garage door, the building is highly likely to suffer impact, damage, to the significant historic structure due to the tight turning radius. If the opening's not widened, either it's likely to suffer damage or not be used, is staff's finding. The alteration does not meet the letter of the conservation guidelines as it's altering a historic opening, but the widening is, generally in the interest of historic conservation to protect the building from damage due to maneuvering in and out of the garage. When we look at widening the garage door, it will preserve the functional viability of the carriage house, which has historically been used for vehicular parking on the ground level, and it will protect the building from damage. There's no other feasible alternative to cut a new garage door in the side based on the site configuration and access. Under 1435-092 of the zoning code, the board can approve an application for a COA when it finds that the property owner has demonstrated by credible evidence that the property owner will suffer economic hardship if the COA is not approved. And that economic hardship determination is based on 3 primary factors. So the first is, will all economically viable use of the property be deprived without the approval of a COA? As a 2-story carriage house, it's likely that the building would retain some economic viability and other uses with a single car opening without the expansion of the garage door. But it does impact the economic viability of its current use as a detached parking structure and its historic use as the detached parking structure carriage house. The second standard is, will the reasonable investment back expectations of the property owner be maintained without approval of a COA? And it's our finding the current owners of the building purchased the property with a fully functional and easily accessible detached garage with the expectation of maintaining vehicular access to that garage. So denial of the COA would severely limit the use of the garage. Off-street parking is not common in Over the Rhine, so it adds value to the property. And the property owner does have a reasonable investment-backed expectation that parking would be retained throughout their ownership of the property. So it was a reasonable investment-backed expectation that this property would have a functional detached garage at the time that they purchased it. The third standard is whether the economic hardship was created or exacerbated by the property owner. It's our finding that the hardship was not created or exacerbated by the property owner, as it is a direct result of the Department of Transportation and Engineering's reconfiguration of the parking on the street, with the support of the community council and neighboring residents to shift that parking and reduce the maneuverability into the garage. So as I said before, DOTE has confirmed that the parking and traffic light will remain in this configuration. So, we weighed all the evidence and considering the substantial difficulty that the property owner has in accessing the garage, we find that an economic hardship does exist. And it is consistent with that standard of review to grant the certificate of appropriateness. We do also find, if you look at the streetscape, that the proposed alteration is not going to substantially impact the overall character of the district. You can see this is one of the views from Spring Street. This is the garage, surrounded by parking pads and across from new infill construction. Here's a view from the other direction. This is the location of the carriage house. Again, other larger non-historic garages on more of an alley functioning street. So we are, there was a pre-hearing on January 7th. Only the property owner attended that pre-hearing. There are multiple letters of support and opposition, which were provided to you in your packets, but we are recommending approval of the certificate of appropriateness with 2 conditions. The first is that the brick infill below that arch is recessed 1 inch, just again to retain that memory of the historic appearance in the arch. and that the permits be issued within 2 years of the date of the decision or it will expire. We overall find that it's consistent with the standards of review in 1435-092. And that the property owner has demonstrated by credible evidence the current garage opening is functionally impractical, and its continued use in the current configuration is likely to result in damage to vehicles and the building itself. That there is a substantial difficulty in accessing the garage that was not created or exacerbated by the property owner, but by the shift of the parking lane done by the city. And that an economic hardship exists as the owners purchased the property with a functional, easily accessible garage. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Lindsay House.
I have a property owner present to address for any additional commentary or insight on the application.
I don't believe he's here any longer or is going to participate. I think he was in the hallway and communicated to us that he was not interested in speaking at the hearing.
He was not interested?
Not interested in speaking at the hearing.
All right, are there any questions to the board and staff?
I guess one other question, we saw that video of DOTE. Did either DOTE or the owner attempt to back in? And I don't know if the turning radius would permit backing in.
I think they've really been trying to come up with any other solution besides this. And we've been working with DOTE on, blocking off parking spaces or other, and I think the maneuverability does not get any easier no matter how you're trying to get into the spot. And based on balancing the need and the community desires for parking, there's not a willingness to block off parking spaces that would resolve the problem.
And just another clarifying question, even with the proposed bigger door, will it only fit one car or could they fit 2 cars inside once with the bigger door?
I believe it's still just
one.
Yeah, it's really just to get one car in.
And it's not deep enough to do 2 cars tandem?
I don't believe so.
Any other questions for staff? All right, I have 2 people signed up for this. First person I have set up is Myra Greenberg.
Yes, thank you.
Feel like I'm going to the principal's office. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, everyone. My name is Myra Greenberg. I live at 1324 Broadway, and we have a carriage house at 1325 Spring Street. I measured Spring Street, and at the entry from 13th Street, it's about 20 feet, and then it widens as it goes farther north. And next to this garage, historic garage, opening, carriage house, it's 25 feet, plus they have so much sidewalk on a sidewalk apron. So it's rather surprising that someone needs 25 feet or more to enter then exit a garage door. With 25 feet and 6 feet is excluded for the parking lane, you have 19 to 18 feet for maneuvers, plus a sidewalk apron that is next to the garage door itself. I would like to read you an email that was sent to DOTE. We got it later, October 6, 2024. We've been dealing with this since the summer of August 2024. This is from the president of the neighborhood council. I actually showed them that it is possible with a little bit of practice to park in their garages, even with a car parked across the street. I did park my own Hyundai Tucson SUV in the 1337 Spring Street garage in a 3-point maneuver with a large pickup truck parked across from the garage. The dimensions of her car is a little over 15 feet, a little over 6 feet. 15-foot car, she got it in. And the reason is she built new garages at the top of Artist Alley, and that part of Artist Alley is only 15 feet. It's unforgiving, it has a high curb and juniper shrubs behind it, and her garage is right there on the road. 7 people on Spring Street are using their parking pads or their garages, and I will list them. 1334 Broadway, which the owner has. There's a narrow pad on Spring Street. The May 2025 Google Street View shows a black car backed in and using the pad. 1332 Broadway, right next to the garage, carriage house, is a parking space between the carriage house wall and a big unforgiving telephone pole. There's tire marks in the snow as of Saturday. They're using it. 1330 Broadway, narrow pad for 2 cars. 1320 Broadway, a narrow garage. It's being used. 1319 Spring Street, narrow garage being used. 1315 Spring Street, parking pad being used. 1311 Spring Street, parking pad being used. And they all have vehicles parked on the opposite side of this in the parking lane. A 12-foot wide door would allow 2 6-foot vehicles. I think that's what it's really about.
Just remember, we usually keep this to 2 minutes, so just advise you to kind of.
Okay, 530 Reading Road is pending, 1.5 million. Behind Reading Road is Dote Alley. They put garage. Dote Alley is only 10 feet wide. Walls and foundations are built right to the road, only 10 feet. So for them to act like they must have in this U-turn, which is not a three-point turn, this radius, 7 spaces on Spring Street, and we only have so many 19th century carriage houses in over the Rhine. 2 of them happen to be on this block. So I believe that this is manufactured hardship, and I present this email from the president of and the 2025 Google Street View of the car park. Thank you very much. Are you saying I'm completely out of time?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is there a reason why the owner doesn't wish to speak?
Hello, my name is Brad Kinke. I'm the husband of the owner, Allison Irwin, at 1337 Spring Street.
Brad, we just need to swear you in before any
Yes.
testimony.
Sure.
If you can just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. So just wanted to say, we've worked really hard to try to resolve this issue with DOTE for over 1.5 years. This is kind of our last resort to regain the parking that we bought the property having. It had been that way for decades. DOTE did at one point give us a no parking spot across from the garage so that we could maneuver in and out. And then at the neighborhood council's request, they took that away. We went back and forth with them again. They gave us a compact parking only spot, which did nothing. It's violated all of the time, and it's too narrow of a street with anyone across the street. All I can say is we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't spend this money if we didn't need to make this viable. So.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I asked it while you're out, but have you tried backing in? Is backing in a viable option?
So we've tried several times, we couldn't do it, but the neighborhood council president, Shirley, she did, and it took like 15 turns. and her vehicle had all these sensors that would beep and cameras, and not all of our tenants will have those kind of vehicles with those aids. This is tenant parking. It's 2 units. I mean, it's a large building. It's 5,000 square feet. As we stated, it could be anywhere from 5 to 7 vehicles that could be associated with that address. So if you pull in backwards the way she did, you would be opening the driver's side into the side wall. There's no room to maneuver. You would have to crawl out of your passenger seat.
And I also asked this while you're up, but with the wider opening, are you hoping to get 2 cars in there, or is it just for 1 car?
It's been historically a 2-car garage. It's deep enough that there's room to maneuver.
I see. So once you're in, you can get 2 cars in?
It's 30 something feet deep. So yeah, there's plenty of room to, as long as both pull forward, one can maneuver out. And that's how it was before this parking change.
So just to clarify that, when you're not able to get in, those tenants are looking for parking on the street, competing with their neighbors.
Correct. So we have the parking pad next to the garage currently, and we leave it open so that both units can use it like for visitors, or we can use it for maintenance, or in like the event that they can't find parking anywhere, they could park there overnight. But actually, so currently there's only 1 car with the first floor, and the upstairs does not have a car. But the first floor is moving out, and the new tenants have 2 vehicles. And it's hard to say when the people upstairs move out, how many vehicles the new people will have. It's not a constant, so.
How wide is the opening?
8 foot.
How wide is the proposed opening that you want to?
We had it at 12.
Discussion or a motion?
I guess one other question, sir. There was some feedback about the materiality of the new garage door. I'm just curious, both from you and from staff, about pros and cons of the choice that was made, and were the other alternatives explored, and how did you arrive at the decision you made?
So initially I had talked to Mr. Owen or Owens, I'm sorry, I can't remember which his name is, but I had asked what kind of style they would like to see as the urban conservator. And I had initially proposed a carriage style door, and he said that that would most likely be inappropriate. So that's why we went with the style that we chose, but we're open to any changes.
And I think we do find that the garage door itself, it meets the guidelines, in terms of a replacement material it's clearly modern, and it's, to some degree, it's a better, more historically appropriate and compatible design than the current one with the fan light, just being the simple panel door.
So I went down there and looked at it, and it's a very tight space to just get any vehicle in general. I believe the average width of an off-street parking space is somewhere around 9 to 10 feet. This opening is much smaller than that, so with the configuration change of parking, it will make it very difficult to utilize this as a garage.
I saw the difficulty of trying to get the car into the driveway, so it's like, oh goodness, and I can't imagine having to do that at night, but then there's a part of me that like, we're about to go and increase a building, historic building that the guidelines don't necessarily uphold. So I'm like, I am really having a tough time with this.
Yes, one more question for both staff and the applicant. So it sounds like going back to 2024 is when you started trying to figure out solutions, and when did Historic Conservation Board get involved, or the Urban Conservator's office?
So I didn't involve them until after we felt we had exhausted all routes with DOTE. I had initially called Mr. Owens around maybe like June or July of '25. And then as things progressed between our lawyers and the city lawyers, and there was nothing, it was clear that nothing was going to happen. That was when we decided to just take the hit and go this route.
And that was our, our first step when we, received, word of this potential application was to reach out to the Department of Transportation and Engineering and just make sure, on the city's end that there's no other feasible alternative or reconfiguration of the street.
You were able to use the garage without great difficulty prior to the change in parking?
Yes, so the prior owner, Jim Creech, he actually let us use one of the spots back when he owned it, and then he used the other. And then he passed away and we purchased the building. And then shortly after that is when suddenly the parking switched, and we were in the process of getting it rented out for the upstairs where he had lived. And that's when everything just went unusable. One tenant used the parking pad, but no one was ever able to access the garage.
Are there any alternatives to altering the structure that you have not explored?
To be able to still park in it,
Yeah.
or I wouldn't know what other option there is. We bought it because we bought it with the intention to have it as a rental and to have garage income and the flexibility for the garage and the appeal of the garage. Because as you know, parking is very tight there. So we don't really have an alternate use.
We did ask the question if there was any side access or any, alternative way, because there is some space in the side yard and that was not feasible too with turning radius and access to get something less visible alteration on the side.
Yeah, I cannot make a motion, so someone has to.
Motion to approve this.
We can make a motion. Approve or approve conditions or deny, go to or deliberate in executive session. If you so choose.
I make a motion that we go into executive session.
All right,
Second.
all right, call the roll now.
Yeah, just need a motion.
Chair entertain a motion to reconvene the meeting.
Move to reconvene the meeting.
Second.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Ms. Smith Robbins? Aye. Chair votes aye. All right, the meeting has been reconvened. Do we have a motion on the floor?
I move to approve the certificate of appropriateness with the conditions that were indicated by staff.
I'll second.
All right, call the roll on that. Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Tate?
Aye.
Ms. Smith Robbins?
No.
And the chair votes aye. Motion passes. There's one final item of business on the agenda before we are able to adjourn, and that is the staff approvals for December 2025. I assume you guys have looked them over. If you have anything you guys want to, staff?
So, Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this January?
December.
December. Okay. The December staff approvals.
Seconded.
All right. Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Tate?
Aye.
Ms. Dobbins? Aye. The chair votes aye on those staff approvals as well. Any further business for the board? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.